We have news on the latest WWE versus AEW Google Trends, and the most searched wrestler for April of 2022 has been revealed. We also have an update on the location of the 2023 Royal Rumble Premium Live event. We have the ratings for this week's edition of Monday Night Raw heading into WrestleMania Backlash on Sunday, and news why Sheamus has missed some in-ring action on the recent WWE UK tour. All this and more in today's WWE News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about these WWE versus AEW Google Trends. Because, of course, everything's a competition right now, and everyone either hates WWE or loves WWE or hates AEW or loves AEW, and tribalism and toxicity on social media is just out of control. But from the Google perspective, from the online search perspective, WWE still dominates the upstarts AEW in online, easy for me to say, popularity. Now, according to a new study from Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, very worth a follow on Patreon. It's a really good account. So if you've got some change to spare, be sure to follow him. WWE has garnered an 80.1% share of Google web searches among all wrestling promotions thus far in 2022, while AEW is the next closest with 12.4%. New Japan Pro Wrestling has garnered nearly 5% of all wrestling-related searches in the year so far. No other promotion near 2% of Google searches in 2022, with Impact Wrestling gaining a 1.5% share and Ring of Honor, NWA, and MLW combining for a total of just 1%. Now, Thurston's reports also showed that AEW has witnessed a steady gain in online popularity over the course of the last 12 months. Meanwhile, undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns was the most searched for wrestling personality in the month of April 2022. Brock Lesnar, WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin, Cody Rhodes, and Triple H rounded out the top 5. So to be honest, I mean, it's not like anything that's particularly shocking, shall we say, that WWE is the most searched for pro wrestling company, or it has been the most most searched trends on Google, because they should be, frankly. AEW, and this is the thing with AEW and people comparing WWE to AEW and all that kind of stuff is, again, people like to move the goalposts. Like the detractors of AEW say that they should be, with the television they've got, with the stars they got, they should be level with WWE, and they compare the ratings. They'll say, look, SmackDown on a Friday does nearly 2 million viewers, and AEW on a Wednesday does less than 1 million viewers. Ha ha ha! It's like apples to oranges, right? SmackDown's on network television on a Friday. It's an established show that's been around for like nearly 25 years. Monday Night Raw on a Monday. It's been in that same time slot, pretty much on that same network, apart from a brief period of time where they were on Spike, the new TNN, but they've basically been on USA Network for nearly 30 years in the same time slot on the same night. Of course they're going to get more viewers. They will always get more viewers. And people say, well, WCW did it in the Monday Night Wars. They got more viewers than Raw during that time period. It's like Raw had been around for 2 years at that point, 3 years? That, it wasn't as established at that point. So the fact that WWE is continuing to dominate AEW in terms of search trends, it should. It really should. Now, the interesting thing, if you do look at the chart, and I wish I had it on the screen here, I would recommend to go follow Brandon Thurston on social media. The interesting thing is that from sort of January 2014, which is where this graph starts, it starts off at about 56 or 55, and goes all the way up to sort of 65. Which again is a huge number, and around sort of July, October 2016. And then really from the 2017 mark onwards, it falls down really far down. From going to a peak of around, as I said, 65. Currently it's at about 25. Which again, they'll say, well, it's still very, it's still good, and AEW still miles off it. Yes, but I think AEW's shown a steady increase, in the way that things are going, you could argue that maybe if things stay the same in 5-10 years' time, maybe they will get closer and closer. But I think if you were WWE, you would argue that these Google Trends do show a sort of a decline in interest, maybe. But I didn't really jump onto that either. I look at WrestleMania last month, and I say it was the most successful WrestleMania financially they've ever done. They spread it across 2 nights. They dominated social media for both nights. So you can read into statistics any way you really want, to be honest with you. You know, they can both prove and disprove any theory that people have, and I'm sure that they will, because again, people will have their own theories, people will have their own narratives to spin, but it doesn't really surprise me. I think the really interesting part of it, and again, maybe it shouldn't be so much, but the interesting part of it is that Roman Reigns is the most searched for person in April 2022. Now, people will say, well, he should be. He main evented WrestleMania. He's the biggest star in the industry right now. Yes, but he's also beating out names like Brock Lesnar, like Steve Austin, like Triple H, like Vince McMahon himself. These are people that have got a lot of cachet in their name. So it just goes to show truly the... and this is just in April, it must be said. So it's at a time where he's main eventing WrestleMania, he's making history, the undisputed WWE champion, all that kind of stuff. But it goes to show the star that he is. And he legitimately, Roman Reigns is, the name was on the shirt, he is the needle mover. What show he appears on does very, very well. Ironically, the highest rated or highest searched for person in April 2022 from AEW was actually Paul White. And I would just assume that's to do with, you know, just being the Big Show, and people know who the Big Show is. The next one from AEW was Paige Van Zandt. She's a UFC star. The actual, you know, person on that list that was actually really active in-ring talent for AEW was CM Punk. And again, that probably comes from, you would argue, that comes from, you know, his WWE history. So it just goes to show how much WWE does dominate the online space, truly. The other names included on that list from AEW, Jeff Hardy from WWE, Jon Moxley from WWE. So it's always interesting. Now, you could argue Moxley as a search term is more AEW centric as opposed to WWE, but I think it's an interesting point of just how WWE continues to dominate the online space, and they'll continue to do so for years to come. Let's talk about the Royal Rumble already, I know, but WWE is reportedly looking at Texas for the 2023 Royal Rumble location. A new report from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select notes that the Alamo Dome, easy for me to say, I'm terrible at pronunciations, it must be said, in San Antonio, Texas, is the front runner for the 2023 Royal Rumble Premium Live events. Of course, they last ran that location in 2017, and before that in 1997 for Shawn Michaels' WWE title victory over Psycho Sid. WWE Royal Rumble events have been held at domes or stadiums every year since 2019, and all but one year since 2017. The Alamo Dome was the first dome WWE ran the Rumble at, as I mentioned, in 97, and the only dome they ran at for more than nearly 2 decades. Of course, it was recently reported that WWE plans to run a lot more stadium shows in 2023, so this would lean into that, even though Royal Rumble is always a stadium show anyway. There's no word on the dates of the Rumble, when that will be, but we'll keep you updated if it is finally announced. WWE announced attendance of 52,020 for the 2017 Rumble at the Alamo Dome. I actually really enjoyed that Royal Rumble event. I thought the Royal Rumble was really good. Randy Orton winning. It had that Rumble where it had loads of stars in, but it was right at the end when you had Brock, Goldberg, The Undertaker, and all that kind of stuff. But Randy Orton ended up winning that one. That was the one as well where the ramp was just so ginormously long that they were getting some of the bigger stars like The Big Show, like Mark Henry, like Braun Strowman, I think even Bray Wyatt as well, were getting sort of ferried down there on golf carts. And it was very humorous, but they would cut away. They would cut away from that and just sort of shoot people in the ring, and it was quite awkward. So I'm assuming they would do it again, but I thought the atmosphere was really good for that show, and I thought it was a really good event. So I think that's an exciting location for the Royal Rumble in 2023. As far as WWE's sort of stadium plans for next year, I can see both sides of the argument. I've seen some people on social media saying, "Oh, it's going to take away the sort of grandeur from those events," you know, and you know, if you're constantly at a stadium, the novelty of being inside of a stadium and it looking so big and all that kind of stuff wears off. But from the WWE perspective, I would think they're thinking, look, we could run arenas that will sell out 15,000, maybe 12,000, whatever. Or we could run a stadium and we're not going to sell it out every single time, but we could sell 30,000 tickets, 40,000 tickets. And if we get a good deal, and the overhead's nearly the same as an arena. It'll be a little bit more expensive, but if we can, sell 30 or 40,000, which I think they probably could, then they'll be saying to themselves, well, yeah, then why not do it? Is the demand there? Time will tell. Time will tell when it comes to that. Initially, absolutely it will be, but we'll have to wait and see when it comes to the future for that. Let's talk about the ratings for Raw briefly. Of course, it was the WrestleMania Backlash Go Home show. Backlash on Sunday, of course. Monday's live WrestleMania Backlash Go Home edition of Raw drew an average of 1.581 million viewers on the USA Network, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. This is down 2.04% from last week's 1.614 million viewers. And as I mentioned, the real indicator to how successful Raw is going to be with Cody Rhodes and all that kind of stuff is going to come after WrestleMania, when obviously there is a dip in interest in everything. And that's what we're kind of seeing here. Now, I thought Raw easily is the better show out of Raw and SmackDown so far. I mean, SmackDown is just such a nothing show right now, especially once you have the Reigns segment. And we were saying this before WrestleMania, weren't we? That once Reigns and Brock Lesnar had their segment, there was nothing of interest on that show. And now that Brock's gone and Roman's doing, stuff, there's nothing really of interest on that show. Nevertheless, Raw drew an average of 0.38 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is down 13.63% from last week's 0.44 key demo rating. Raw ranked number 4 for the night in the cable top 150, which is even from last week's number 4 ranking. Now, Raw ranks number 18 for the night in viewership on cable. Obviously, there was a ton of NBA games, Mavericks versus the Suns, 76ers versus the Heat. So there was a lot going on. So you could argue, yes, there was lots of competition, but there's lots of competition pretty much every night right now when it comes to the NBA and all that kind of stuff. Now, Monday's Raw drew the lowest viewership and key demo rating since the December 20 episode. This week's Raw viewership was down 2.04% from last week's episode, while the key demo was down 13.63%. As far as year on year, Monday's Raw viewership was down 15.54% from the same week in 2021, while the key demographic rating was down 28.30% from the same week in 2021 also. So again, that's television. And as I always say with record lows, not that this was, but whenever we get record lows, is that wait for next year, because we'll get a new one. And we will get a new record low this year for Raw. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. There's been some questions about Sheamus recently. Now, former WWE champion Sheamus is, one of the must-see stars when you have the European tour. Now, the Irish superstar once again competed during the tour last weekend. However, Sheamus only competed for half of the shows. Sitting out 2 of the matches caused some concern for fans who were questioning if Sheamus was actually injured, maybe on Thursday or Friday during those shows. But there was a set reason that Sheamus missed the in-ring action on the Saturday and Sunday events, and it wasn't injury related. Instead, WWE reportedly made the decision that they wanted to allow Butch, Pete Dunne, more ring time. According to PW Insider, the Rising Star challenged Intercontinental Champion Ricochet for all 4 European tour dates. Sami Zayn joined the bout to make it a 3-way match in London and Paris at those live events as well. So there was some worry that maybe Sheamus was injured, but that's not the case. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestling News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.